Yellowstone Supervolcano overdue eruption fears addressed in critical USGS volcano update. This is by Sebastian Ketley on Express UK. Yellowstone volcano's supposed overdue status was addressed by the US Geological Survey in a critical update regarding future Yellowstone activity. This is today's article. The super eruption of the Yellowstone volcano system threatens to alter, as we know, global weather patterns. It will blanket the United States in ash, and thankfully the odds of Yellowstone erupting in the foreseeable future are next to non-existent. Yellowstone volcano is estimated to have at least erupted about 631,000 years ago, a smaller eruption about 70,000 years ago. That was the 631,000 years ago was a superblast, which shaped the volcano's present-day caldera. And the likelihood of this happening again within our lifetime is exceedingly low, according to the USGS. But scores of people are still convinced Yellowstone volcano is bubbling away and preparing to erupt. Twitter user John Fairchilds tweeted, "Do any environmentalists actually take into account all of the effects on global temperatures of volcanoes, both above ground and under the sea? Doubt it, or they'd be worried a lot more about the long overdue eruption for the supervolcano at Yellowstone than so-called man-made global warming." And Andrew Hitton tweeted, "Yellowstone is actually the one that is most overdue. When it goes off, it's like taking the entire West Coast with it, and there's nothing we can do to stop it. Have a great day," he says. Now, there is, however, no cause for concern. According to USGS, all fears of Yellowstone erupting soon are unfounded. In a weekly Yellowstone update, the Caldera Chronicles, USGS geologist Mike Pollan addressed the eruption fears directly, and he said, "We've heard many statements that Yellowstone is overdue, that it has a major eruption every 600 years on average, and since the last eruption it was 631,000 years. So, well, you can see where this is going. Is this true? In a word, no. In 2 words, no way. In 3 words, not even close. Yellowstone does not work that way. Yellowstone had 3 major eruptions occurring an estimated 360,000 years ago, 1.3 million years ago, and 2.1 million years ago. And this supposed periodicity has led some to believe that Yellowstone eruption on a tight schedule and the 4th blast is due to come. But Dr. Pollan argued volcanoes do not behave in this manner, and as a result, there are no indicators Yellowstone is bound to erupt again. The scientists explained this comes out to an average of about 725,000 years between eruptions. Now, that being the case, we still have about 100,000 years to go, but this number is based on very little data and so is basically meaningless. Would you base any conclusion on the average of just 2 numbers? The point, however, is that if someone or some article or documentary say that Yellowstone erupts every 600,000 years, you know right off the bat that they are full of baloney. In order for Yellowstone volcano to erupt again, it will need to accumulate vast amounts of magma in its subterranean chambers, but there's no evidence of this happening right now. But volcanoes do not collect molten rock at a constant and regular rate, as some might expect. Instead, volcanoes erupt when their supply of magma and lava build in pressure to the point where the molten rock is forced to the surface. Dr. Pollan said, "No matter how you slice it, Yellowstone is not overdue. No way, not even close. But we can't say the same about the oil change for your car, so you might want to check on that instead." Now, the USGS also predicts when it does erupt, there will be more big lava flows. This was the March 9th article by USGS. Yellowstone supervolcano will certainly erupt again in the future, and when it does, the USGS warned it could be another cataclysmic super eruption. It's expected to erupt again, but geologists cannot pinpoint the date or the type of next blast. Yellowstone, as we know, erupted about 70,000 years ago, which was the smaller eruption, was not the super eruption. And it was relatively a minor volcanic eruption at that time. The last major caldera forming blast occurred about 640,000 years ago and formed the volcano's recognizable landscape today. But according to the USGS scientist Jacob Lowenstern, the uncertainty around Yellowstone means it could erupt next year or it could erupt 1,000 years from now. These are his words. So Lowenstern said, if the next eruption, concerning what he said at his 2014 lecture, there is an outside possibility that it will be one of these super eruptions, but that's by no means the most likely scenario. As I said before, he says, it's perfectly possible there never will be another super eruption out of Yellowstone. We'll get one somewhere on Earth, but Yellowstone's already had 3 pretty big eruptions, and most of these volcanoes don't have 4 or 5. They kind of use up all of the crust that's available to melt, and they lose their ability to keep creating really big eruptions. Okay, but since then they have come out with other articles saying that Yellowstone is under a hot spot. There's a hot spot, magma plume under Yellowstone. And they've also found from the rock examinations of Yellowstone that it erupts in minor eruptions about every 6,000 years. 6,000 years in between minor eruptions. Now, also, they said that it's more likely we'll have more of these big lava flows coming out, sort of using up what magma is down there, but nobody can tell us for sure. Yellowstone volcano's 3 biggest eruptions occurred, we said, 640,000 years ago, 1.3 million years ago, 2.1 million years ago. Each of the cataclysmic blasts shaped to transform the surrounding landscape in what is modern-day Northwest America. And since then, the USGS has found evidence of at least 80 non-explosive eruption events, 27 of which produced rhyolite lava flows in the Yellowstone caldera. Another 13 lava flows broke out beyond the volcano's caldera, and 40 produced so-called basalt vents. Those are volcanic fissures oozing dark and scorching volcanic rock. And for Yellowstone to undergo another super eruption, it would mean it would need to produce more than 240 cubic miles of material. And all of that molten rock then needs to concentrate in point, a sponge-like magma chamber, and has to exceed 50% of all material in the chamber. USGS geologist Lowenstern says that all magma chamber imaging and predictions show there is only about 15% of melt in Yellowstone's chamber compared to solid rock and crystal. He said, so it's possible there are some highly molten areas down there, but they're probably not enormous, so we don't think there's a big enough area with highly melted regions that could create one of these big eruptions, but there could be smaller areas. There are probably areas down there that could erupt if the right circumstances forced it. When Yellowstone volcano does erupt again in the future, the USGS expects the blast to be hydrothermal and not an explosive one. The USGS explained that the most likely explosive event to occur at Yellowstone is actually a hydrothermal eruption, a rock-hurling geyser eruption, or a lava flow. Though the worst-case scenario for a giant Yellowstone eruption is indeed bad and could have, of course, global implications, most past eruptions at Yellowstone were not highly explosive. Of the past 50 or so eruptions, almost all were simple lava flows. So here he's not talking about the super eruptions, he's talking about the smaller eruptions. And as we said, they occur about every 6,000 years. And he said if they occurred tomorrow or next year, they would have minimal direct effect outside Yellowstone National Park. This is the most likely volcanic scenario at Yellowstone. And also, to leave that off, one of the other recent findings that they found concerning Yellowstone is that it is 2.5 times bigger than they thought it was. It reaches all the way down to Mexico. So the radius from Yellowstone to Mexico, and you can imagine from Yellowstone to the north would be somewhere around Hudson Bay. That basically takes up the whole of North America. And also the other fact is that half the geysers in the world are in Yellowstone. Half the geysers, volcanic hydrothermal geysers, are situated in Yellowstone, the national park. We're not talking about the Long Valley Caldera geysers, we're not talking about the Iceland geysers, we're not talking about other geysers, we're talking about half the world's geysers are in Yellowstone. So I'll leave links below for you for this. If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because we help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.